Good evening, and if you don't mind, I'm going to back up a little bit, but I'd like to take the mask down because it's very difficult to talk in that. First of all, I want to say welcome. My name is Dennis Wagner, and I am the superintendent here at Anahuac ISD. As you know, over the last few months, we have faced many challenges in our school district and in our community with COVID-19, and as we had since spring break of last year, trying to make sure that we had about a week to plan virtual learning, which was a challenge for our district to make sure that we could meet the needs of our students. And we learned quite a few things about whether it was packets for virtual learning, computer issues, technology, bandwidth, all the things that we needed to upgrade to make sure that we could make school happen in the fall. As we got into June, July, if you watch the local news each and every night, I'm sure you are as confused as most people, as TEA and the governor and the CDC have to work together to make sure that they make recommendations. And if you look back since June the 1st, they've changed several different times. I know that for me personally, every Tuesday and Thursday, I have a meeting with Mr. Morath, and we're live in a Zoom meeting with all superintendents across the state of Texas, trying to make decisions of what's best for your community and how to start school and how to make sure that you balance instruction and safety at the same time. And that has been our challenge. And so in the month of June and in July, we have made decisions that we feel are the best for the students of Anahuac ISD. With that being said, you're going to hear a lot of people talk, whether it's in our community or in Harris County, talking about, I know if you watch Judge Hidalgo push them back to September the 8th, there's a lot of reasons for that in that county. Talking to other superintendents, some pushing back. Some schools have already started, such down in Edna, Texas, where they started this past week, and moving forward. But one of the things we do is we make decisions for Anahuac ISD. And I think one of the things that we wanted to do is to make sure that we gave our parents the choice of how they wanted their students educated. Two different ways that you can be educated this year. We feel like if you want to bring your students to school, we understand that, that's wonderful. But if you want to keep your kids home and do virtual learning, we want to make sure though that if you're doing that, there's some things and some challenges that we face when you actually keep them home and do virtual learning. Some of those things are making sure that you have a device that works, internet access that is dependable, that will work and be able to connect with your teachers. Also making sure, just some tips, like make sure they have an environment where you know your child, an environment where they are structured, where they don't have distractions, and they can actually focus on the learning just like they would at school. And then making sure that we can do some one-on-one with them in a virtual setting where those students can have input of the lessons or the videos that they watch throughout the year. So there are some challenges with that. Also in our school district, we are looking at, we've got more Chromebooks that are coming in. As you know, everybody in the state are trying to purchase Chromebooks, and we'll be looking at trying to get those out to some of our virtual learners that are in need. Also, we have updated all the Wi-Fi. Sometimes we can't control certain areas of our county that do not have great internet access. So we've definitely updated our Wi-Fi in front of our north side of our football stadium, in front of our high school, at the elementary, in front of the, where you enter the front doors. Also in the stadium on the home sides, you can access Wi-Fi there. And so sometimes if your Wi-Fi goes down or you need access to that, we'll be sending out a password at the beginning of the school year for anyone that wants to access our Wi-Fi as a guest, so that your student, your child, whether he or she feels that something happens at home or gets disconnected, you can access it from our school. So we're very excited about that, but we also know that the secret to virtual learning is not the teacher. It's not always the device. It is actually the support system, and that is usually the parent, and that is quite a challenge. And I told teachers yesterday when I met with them when they returned yesterday as we start our back to school planning, I have two children, one that just graduated from Anahuac ISD, and I have an 8th grader. And both of my kids are totally different. My oldest daughter, who just graduated, would tell you that she could handle virtual learning no matter what, because she is organized. She gets up early in the morning. She wants to get everything done. She doesn't procrastinate. She is an excellent student that is motivated and ready to go, and I probably wouldn't have to do anything for her. Then I have child number 2. And in child number 2, it is not going to look like that with the Wagners. Child number 2 is probably going to want to sleep late, procrastinate, take her time, and probably complete it at 11:59 before she goes to bed. Now that's my second child. I know that virtual learning for her will not be the best bet, and that's why we're moving her to school. We also know that we have students that maybe have some underlying health issues that may cause them the need to have virtual learning. And we totally understand that and support that. That's why our district is offering that for parents, because we feel like, number one, safety for you, and we want you to feel comfortable for the education that your child is getting, and we want you to make that decision, not us. But with that, we have a lot of pressure put on us to make sure that those 30% of our students in our district that have chosen virtual, 70 have chosen to come to school across our district. The 30% that are not coming for the first 6 weeks at this time, we want to make sure that their education is the best they can possibly get. And we also know one of the things that we learned, like I said, in the spring, is that parents make the difference. They truly do. And I would say that about anything in education. Also, I think one of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing when you look at how we set this up, we definitely want to make sure that your student feels good. We want to make sure that their social, emotional side is great. We also want to know that educating students is not just about academics. It's about a lot of things. So we're excited that you're here tonight. I know you probably have a ton of questions. We also hope you picked up a handout when you came in. We definitely want to make sure you have that. We're also going to record this tonight, and we'll put this on our website for you to access, because we thought, there may be some people that may not feel comfortable coming tonight. We wanted to make sure that they had access to this. Also, throughout the year, we'll be providing professional development for parents on certain nights and throughout the months to make sure if you have any questions, you can access or come and see us, and we are here to help you. We definitely want this to be an absolutely positive situation and a learning environment for your child. So I'm going to turn it over now to the expert, and that is not me, and that is Ms. Rebecca Green. She is our instructional technologist, and she's going to walk you through the process, and then at the end, if you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer those.
Good afternoon, or good evening, I guess. First, I want to say thank you for taking time out of your schedules to come up here and get all the information you possibly can, and we're just thrilled that you're here. That way you can support your students through this process, because it's a crazy process, right? This whole thing is crazy, but we're more than willing to make it happen, for sure. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a little bit of need to knows. There we go.
Oh, it went twice.
So the first thing that we want you to know is about the rigor. So in the spring, after the governor basically said, okay, we're done, you're going to have to finish school through virtual learning. At that point, all teachers, all students, all parents, we were all in survival mode, right? It was, let's get it done. Let's get it done however we can. Let's figure out a way to get some kind of instruction, because our teachers, I think they took 2 days to turn over from in classroom learning to online learning. And that is incredible for our teachers. And then our students did the same thing. And it is incredible that our students were able to do that so successfully. Through that process, we were able to see what worked and what didn't work. And we were able to take that information and then make a better plan throughout the summer, because we had more time and experience. So now for this next school year, it's not survival mode. It is definitely going to be high quality education. That's what your student deserves. And we realize that, and we want to give that to them. So some of the things that we decided in order to make it high quality education was we had to think about how are we going to give that instruction to our kids that are virtual learners. And we figured out that Google Classroom, since you all have experienced it, or students have experienced it to some degree, that is going to be the best way for us to give that instruction to your students. And so we set it on Google Classroom, but we wanted it to be more user-friendly, I guess, or it's easier for you to understand. Because I know I had students in multiple grade levels, and whenever we opened up their Google Classrooms, they looked completely different from each other. And while we knew that that made sense to their teacher, it was harder for parents to see, this is how I do it for first grade, this is how I do it for fifth grade, and now I even have a high school student and it looks completely different. So we wanted to make sure that was streamlined, and it's going to look exactly the same if you have a student in pre-K and if you have a student in 12th grade. It looks exactly the same, but the lessons and the content that they're covering obviously will be different. But that way you know where to find the things that you need to find. Every single student in pre-K through 12 will have 4 steps to complete. So this is a good time to bring this in too. If you have a student that, I know this is for elementary students, but if you have students in middle school or high school also, you don't have to attend any of that other meeting for next week, because what we're covering here, since it looks exactly the same, you don't have to go to that meeting. But whenever you have students in elementary, the only difference is they only have one Google Classroom because they have one teacher. And in the middle school and high school, they're going to have multiple Google Classrooms just because they have multiple teachers teaching multiple subjects. But the setup is exactly the same in all of those classrooms. So in each classroom, in each Google Classroom, those students are going to have 4 steps to complete each day. The very first one is going to be a check-in. I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit, but that is the attendance piece. That is so that teachers and principals know if your student is actually being engaged in those lessons and getting that instruction. And if not, we're able to reach out to make sure everything's okay and to make sure what can we do to help you be engaged in those, to get that instruction and get those assignments. And then the next step is going to be the lesson. That's going to be the instructional piece. This is going to be that recorded lesson for your students to watch. We are making that a little more engaging this year. Because again, we realized what worked and what didn't work. And then the third step will always be that assignment. Now, the assignment might not be what in our minds what an assignment is. It might be them doing an activity with you. It might be them watching their teacher in the instruction piece doing that activity, and then you're able to do it with them. Or it might be as simple as them playing an online game that they found with maybe their textbook online, things like that. That's going to be the assignment piece. And then they'll have time for feedback and reteaching. This is going to be that interaction that all students need with their teachers. There might be things that they don't understand about that lesson that they just heard in that assignment, and they're going to be able to talk to their teacher, and that teacher's going to be able to fix some kind of misconceptions or re-explain it, or just build that relationship with your student, because we know that's really important. We don't want to make that seem like it's not important just because your students are virtual learners. They are as important to us as anybody else walking through those doors. So we wanted to have that time for them. So that first step is check-in. It is going to be as simple as putting in your student's name. And then the question is, how are you feeling today? Because as Mr. Ryder was saying, that is incredibly important to us, because through this process, in our minds, we can make it make sense, kind of. But for them, they might be struggling, and we want to be able to make sure that whenever they answer that question, if they're struggling, it tells them that they need to contact a counselor. Well, they can't contact the counselor or their teacher, that's up to you, but our teachers are also looking at it, and so you're able to contact them, and they'll have some previous knowledge to be able to, what can help you with. And if they're struggling with the concept, even in class, it's the same thing. That way you're able to communicate with the teacher that they're struggling on a concept in class. But that is also how we're going to get their attendance. And so it's very important to have your students do this by 9:30 a.m. every day. If you have a high school or middle school student, it is their second period class that they'll have to do that by 9:30 every day. And then if they don't get it completed, because we know things happen and everything like that, but we want to make sure that they're okay. And so you'll be called by either an attendance clerk or somebody on that campus, maybe even their teacher, just to say, hey, I just want to check on you. How are you feeling today? You're doing okay? Do you need anything from me? That way we can make sure they're ready for their instruction for the day. All right, so let's talk a little bit about grades. And this was something that that we discovered was more.
It's not wanting to
communicate to you after talking with our teachers actually today. Grades will be given, and it will be the same grading criteria as if they were on campus, because they're getting that same kind of instruction and doing the same activities and assignments. Now obviously pre-K and kinder, they don't do numerical grades, and that's going to be the same for your virtual learners. But they do go over different things if they've mastered this skill and that nature, and that'll be the same as well. But we did notice today that our teachers were telling us that a lot of parents were very concerned whenever they looked at the Google Classroom for those grades. What we want you to know about Google Classroom is sometimes whenever a grade is missing or the teacher hasn't put it in yet, it might have been something that they didn't necessarily need a grade for. Let me give you an example of that. If it is an instructional piece that they have to watch a video, they might not have a grade for watching the video, but that assignment after in step 3, that's where they're going to get their grade. So if you have any questions about grades and you want to keep track of them, look at Skyward, because that's where all your teachers are going to be putting in those grades. They'll mark it as missing if it's missing, and then that's the way to see their average and track their progress. And if you have any issues, we are here for you, but I want you to know that because sometimes you have to wait a little while to get a response through email or anything like that. You have a Google cheat sheet in front of you. It says for students, but it's just that student view, which is what you'll be seeing as a parent. And then Ms. Hooper is going to kind of go through that just a little bit with you, just very minimal, because you'll see that put in action in a little bit too. But we wanted you to have a hard copy of that. It is on the website, and I'm going to show you where to find that. But we wanted you to have that hard copy so you can check in on that to see if you can have any answers in there. On the website, we will have resources. It will be the cheat sheet as well as anything that comes up. We'll have videos in there of how to do this or how to do that. If you have a lot of questions for it, we'll have PDFs on there about specifically how to do something in Google Classroom or how to watch a video or how to get a video to load, and it's going to be step by step for you. If it's not on there, contact your student's teacher, and they will be able to get to us and say, hey, our parents really need this resource. And we'll either have it emailed directly to you as well as put it on the website. So just make sure you're in constant communication with your virtual teacher for your student, because they are going to be your gateway to get to us quicker and easier. Because they'll know a little bit more about where myself and Ms. Hooper are, maybe, hopefully. We're going to be all over the place because we want to make this very successful for you and your learners. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Hooper. You might have known Ms. Hooper from the elementary. She's been there for a while, but she just recently joined my team for instructional technology, and we're super excited to have her because we need all the help we can get now.
Good evening. All right, what I want to go over a little bit with you next is the handout you got, the cheat sheet. So in this cheat sheet, you'll have step-by-step instructions with pictures. I love it. It's nice and easy to follow. And like she said, we're not going to cover the whole thing. We're just going to quickly go through it once it opens.
Is a slow process right now.
We're happy the internet is back on because we lost that earlier today. We weren't sure if we would still be able to go over all of this with you. Okay, the student navigation part is on page 5. When you go into Google Classroom, there's the main menu is over here on the right. Oh, step. Now, there's 3 little lines over here on the left-hand side when you get into Google Classroom, and that's like the menu. You click on that and you can look down there. You also, yes, here it is. Then there's the stream, the number 2, which confuses a lot of people. I wish the stream wasn't on there. If we could remove it, we would. And we found a way we might be able to remove some of it, but I'm not sure if all teachers are going to. They might like that on there for themselves. Where your student needs to look is number 3, classwork. And when you click on that, that's where you're going to see their assignments and the teacher has given. I did not log on.
Yep, you're good. Okay. I just clicked a button. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation.
Is that's all we're covering on that? After classwork, then there was a grades?
Yeah, I think it's people and grades.
People and grades. So you can see other students that are in it. Your child can see other students in the class. And then We're not going to go through every single step on here because you do have that copy in front of you. The majority of you used Google Classroom this spring. And it hasn't changed. They've added a few cool things for us, but it's still pretty easy to navigate.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, the ISD website homepage is where you can find other resources. Don't click on elementary first and then go try to find these other resources. Stay on that main homepage and scroll down. Like here's where you can find your school supply list. Way over here, parent resources for virtual learning. So I know a lot of people, I saw it on Facebook saying, I can't find the school supply list, it's not on there. Well, it was on the homepage, it was not within the elementary campus. So if you click on that, then you're going to come up, you'll see the resources that Ms. Green has put on there and things that we'll come up with if questions arise and people need more help with other cheat sheets or anything, we'll put them on here and we'll be updating it as needed. So right now,
Some Google Apps cheat sheets.
the Google Apps cheat sheet is on there, and
This is for middle school and high school parents and how their classrooms will be set up, but it goes well with what elementary is too, because remember they're the same. So it's a video on how it's
so
set
if
up.
you're a parent of elementary and you have a middle school student or a high school student, it's pretty similar, but that is on there too for middle school and high school. And then of course the cheat sheet that's in your hand is there too, but we will end up putting a lot more on there as questions come up and people need more. That's where we'll add it. Anytime you have a question, you might want to look up first before you start asking someone else, because probably even tomorrow we may start adding more stuff on.
Definitely.
So this is, this is the student view. They should see a classroom that looks like this, and I'm going to join one as a student, so you'll be able, and we'll go through and talk about it, but you should see something similar to this. You'll go to classroom.google.com, and in that packet, it tells you that you're going to need to join by getting a code from your teacher. You won't have to do that. You should see, when you go into classroom.google.com, you'll see the join button already there. Because we'll know which students already are going to be virtual, and we can go ahead and have them invited, and you won't have to worry about finding a code or any of that. Now I'm going to go log in as a kid, and Ms. Green's going to take the next screen. I'm a student on here. She's the teacher.
So a note also, right now, your students will not have that because we don't know, we don't have that set up yet for our teachers. Like our teachers are still working and getting the
Classes aren't set, yeah.
ready to go. And then whenever it's ready to go, they'll actually invite your students and then they'll have that button. So if it's not there today when you go home, it's okay. We know it's not ready yet. By the first day of school though, if it's not, if you don't have that option to join a classroom, that's when you need to call the school and say, hey, we don't have that. Can you help us out and get us in a Google Classroom? Okay, so Ms. Hooper is a student in our sample classroom. And so she's going to open it up. And the first thing that I want you to notice up here in the top right corner is her picture. Now your students will probably will not have a picture up there, but it will have an initial. It's going to be their first initial. If you click on that picture or hover over it, you'll see the account, and you'll see that it says at aisdpanthers.com. If your student does not, if it's not on there like that, then you're not in your student's account. If you are in there as a parent or in your personal account, you will not see anything. So if you don't see that, you can click right there. And then we're on a Chromebook, so we can't add an account. But on this screen, you'll see that it says to add account. And then you'll be able to add your student's information. If you don't know your student's information, contact your teacher, your student's teacher, and they can get that information to you. If your student is logging onto a personal Chromebook, they will have to log on with their AIST Panthers account at the very beginning. Again, if you don't know that, get with your student's teacher, and then they'll be sure to get that to you. But if you don't see this AISTPanthers.com on there, then it's not in your student account. That's very important. Okay, so if you have a middle school or high school student, whenever they go to classroom.google.com, instead of just seeing one box, they'll have kind of like what you saw on Miss Hooper's. They'll have multiple because they're in multiple classrooms. So they'll have to join each one. But for an elementary student, they'll just have one because they just have one teacher. So once you log in and you click open that Google Classroom, you'll see that you're in the stream. This stream is kind of like a Facebook stream where it's just random posts. It's not totally random. It's just going to go in backwards order, and it has no organization. It is incredibly hard to find exactly what you need to do. Ms. Super, will you scroll down and show me?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
If you can't really see what's happening, all you see is the history. Like, I posted this, I posted that. If you go up to the top and you click classwork, it is much more organized. So always click classwork. So here's our steps. We have Monday 1, check-in. Now your students' steps will not be there for the next day until the next day. So that way you're able to see just that day, that present day or previous.
Want me to click on it?
Yes, ma'am. So Monday 1, here's what it looks like whenever you click on that. This is the check-in, this is that attendance piece, this is us wanting to know how your students are. So it has these instructions, and all you'll have to do is click on that Google form sign in below. This is where they put in their last name and their first name. And if you have a younger one, obviously you'll be helping them with this. And then these are their choices on how they're feeling. If they're awesome, perfect. We like that. If it's okay, slightly sad. If they're struggling today, it says, I will contact my teacher and or counselor, and we just want to know why. How can we help you with that? And then at the bottom, it has a list of all of the counselors' contact information. That way, if you have middle school or high schoolers, they might not be as open with you about how they're feeling, and if you want to check with your counselor on that, it has their information on the elementary one as well. That way, you don't even have to bother your high school or middle school and let them know you're sneaking around, not really sneaking, but you're just looking out for their own good. But we have all that information there for you. That way, you don't have to go and search for it. It's all on that Google form for you.
I'm gonna fill it out so I can show them every step.
So the super's going to fill it out. You'll scroll all the way down and then click submit. And you've submitted it whenever it says response has been recorded. So then after that, you can just close out of that tab and it'll take you right back into your Google Classroom. So now your student has completed step 1 for Monday.
And it shows.
And it shows that it's turned in, so you're good to go. So now let's look at step 2. Step 2 is the lesson. This is that recorded piece. I want it to be noted that if we open any of these recordings, I did them, and I am not an elementary school teacher. I was a high school chemistry teacher. So,
Do you want me to open one?
Open one up. So this is what it's going to look like, and when we go back, I want you to see how it's set up in an elementary classroom. So your students will get to this page. If you'll scroll down, at the very bottom it says sign in with Google. They will sign in with Google so they don't have to remember another password. They'll join class. And now they have the video. Go ahead and play it.
Hey guys.
So as it's playing, go ahead and pause it. As it's playing, at the bottom, your student might want to skip forward, right, to get through this because they're done. But that they skip through it and they don't get any of that new instruction. They don't get to hear any of that awesome stuff that their teacher's delivering to them. So
when I
try to drag slot. So this is how we are able to make it a little more interactive, but also to ensure that your students are able to get all of that instruction. They can't fast forward. They can't fast forward. That's an old thing to say. they can't skip through it. But also our teachers might put some questions within that video. So they might go through there and stop the video at a certain point where they ask a question, and your student can answer that question within it. If they do that, then the video will start playing right after they answer that question. So we wanted to make it more interactive. Yeah. So they'll have to watch it, and then at the end, they will go probably, and there might be a question at the very end. But also at the end of the videos, your teacher is going to supply even more information on the assignment that's coming up. They'll give you more details. They'll be able to explain it instead of just in words in writing. They're able to actually show you different things about that assignment. So once you're done with the video, you can close that tab as well. So whenever she opened up the lesson, remember your elementary student is in one Google Classroom, but they have to get reading, they have to get math, social studies, and science. So whenever they open up that lesson, they have each subject there. So they will have to watch 4 videos. These videos will not be very long. They'll be about 15 to 20 minutes, a typical lesson, and then they'll have something to do with that in the assignment. But they have 4 different ones. So that's how we got, it's gonna all look the same, but when you open it up, it's gonna look a little bit different just because of the grade level. So then, after they're done with this, go ahead and click View Assignment with Super. When they're done watching all of those videos, there's a green button over there, and it says Mark is done. And that lets your teacher know that you watched all 4 videos. So now if we push the back arrow to go back, we go back to the classwork. Maybe. There we go.
Yes.
So then, I'm going to let Ms. Cooper explain the assignment piece, and then that feedback and reteaching.
Okay, on the assignment piece, this is where it's probably going to look a little different for elementary versus high school or middle school. So again, if you have a student in middle school or high school, you don't have to come back and explain the differences you'll see here. Now, this explanation was, or this classroom is elementary, but for elementary, 1 assignment, we'll have those 4 activities, like she said. You'll have 4 lessons of math and the ELA, a science, and a social studies. So you look for those 4 each day in that assignment section. At middle school or high school, it'd be one from each teacher that your child has. So you just, depending on the number of teachers, then that's how many assignments will be. You may have to mark as done, like I did on that one. Some of them might not have that button marked as done. It just depends on what kind of assignment it was. Now, on this one, we have a flip grid assignment. Working with the letter M, a Google Drawing Science, and a math assignment. Click on that one because it's a Canvas assignment. Those, if it's like this, it's like a worksheet. You want to make sure, and those instructions are usually in there on that page. But you'll open with Candy, and what that's going to do, it's going to give your child the ability to either use a pen or something from here and use a mouse to draw, or if you have a touch screen, they can use their finger or something with a stylus.
Okay, it's going to have Google.
But then they also can open a text box and type their answer in. And then when you turn that assignment in, the teacher actually gets a copy of that worksheet with the answers filled in. Some teachers were using that in the spring, but not everyone jumped into it. But over here, they could click on a text box or markup. They could do drawing to fill in the boxes. Like this one is you're coloring in the number. Yeah, it's not so easy to
But that's okay.
I tried to draw a rectangle the other day and fill it in. That's one way to do it, but anyway, the teacher can tell you've got one section colored in out of those 3. When you're finished, if you do an assignment that is open in Cami, you will need to click Turn In. It's really tiny, but it's up there at the top on that blue bar, your menu bar. Make sure you click Turn In, otherwise the teacher won't get that picture. And this may be what I know it happened with several students. The parents were then taking a picture and sending that, in another way to the teacher. But you want to make sure and click Turn In. And then she actually gets a copy of that picture with the answers on it in her Google Classroom, her side of the Google Classroom.
Push cancel until they are finished with everything. That way they have these.
Yeah.
And turn in.
So I've submitted those, and I can tell they've been turned in, and the teacher will be able to see those assignments when she looks in her part of the classroom. Okay, the feedback and reteaching section, this is more like a tutoring section, and there's going to be an explanation of when you would need to join and for what subject area. So, for example, on this one, if your child watched the video and they still were a little confused and they needed more information, if it was the math video, this tells when you would need to come on here, and from 1 to 1:30, click on that link, and they'll get to join live in a Google Meet with the teacher, and she can answer questions. So on that, you'll see each subject and what time she'll help with each subject. And on that one, you don't have to mark this done, do you?
Can.
If it does have that on there, just click on it. And there may be times your child doesn't need help with any of them, and that's okay on that reteach part. We wanted to put that in there so that you just can keep in mind every day I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 steps to do. You may not always need, or your child may not always need that 4th step, but it's there for those who do need it. And they may just want to get on and say hi to their teacher, so she'll be there at those times available to answer any questions or check on how they're, if they want to get on and say hi, I'm sure she'll be fine with that. Okay, that was that section, wasn't it?
Yep. That was it, yeah.
I'm so sorry. We're on the social media part now.
Okay, so since it's so simple, the word I say is simple. Nothing in life is simple, but since the way that we have it set up, we want it to be simple for you. That is truly it. It's those 4 steps. The first step will always be a Google form that they fill out those questions. First name, last name, and how are you feeling today, and click submit. That will always be the first step. The second step will always be for elementary, those 4 videos. The third step will always be some kind of assignment or activity. As you saw, one of them was Flipgrid. So it might not just be them working on a worksheet or a choice board or anything like that anymore. Now it's going to be interactive things. And then that 4th step is that reteaching, and it's that time for them to be able to meet with their teacher. While they might not need help, we do highly recommend them going to those meets just because of that relationship building piece. And so we can make sure that they are really comprehending that material, because at the elementary level, you're building that foundation for learning, and it's so important, it's so critical. So we want to make sure that we're able to help them in any way and build those relationships as well. So we have a couple of social media accounts that we want y'all to be aware of. There is a Facebook page, and it's the official Antioch ISD Facebook page that is, managed by, there we go, managed by Antioch ISD. It is the Antioch ISD Panthers. And then if you follow on Twitter, we have some of these listed on here, and it's on your handout that you have. I know Mr. Wagner is fantastic about tweeting out different updates, but also awesome things that are happening in the district and even in the community. So we just have a list of those for you, just if you want it. We know that you're going to come across some things that don't work for you. If you will let your teacher know, we will make sure that it works, and we'll figure out a way around it. We are here to support you, and we're we're excited about this year, even all the craziness, we're still excited about it. And thank y'all so much for attending, and I think Mr. Wagner wants to close it out, so I'm gonna hand it over to him now.
So one of the things that I would tell you when we put this together, I am always the test, because if I can do it, I promise you anyone can do it. One of the things I would say is we really wanted to make sure that it is, like Ms. Green said, it is going to be simple for parents to use. And what I'm going to tell you, in a typical day, if you use this and really do it the right way, students that come to school each and every day are probably engaged actually in the learning process. If you take away PE and some electives, recess and lunch, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours easily every day. Your child will be engaged in these lessons. They should be spending any amount of time of anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. And let me kind of give you an idea of what that should probably look like in your home, hopefully. So in the morning, we're going to ask that you check in and do that attendance piece, because we really want to know how your child feels before 9:30. And that can happen at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., whatever you feel comfortable with. But we definitely want to make sure that if you get up early and start your day with your children, the learning process at 8 o'clock, here's how it should look, and I think it will be beneficial to you. Number one, if you're engaging in these lessons from 8 to about 10 or 11, and you're taking some breaks, we definitely don't want to do that, and I don't recommend doing that for 3 straight hours. You definitely need to take some breaks, but let's say you complete all the lessons, you checked in before 9:30, you did the assignments, and now you're working on the lessons by noon, and you're kind of wrapping up your day, and you spent 3 to 4 hours doing that. That's perfect, because here's what's going to happen in the afternoon. At 1 o'clock, your teacher for your student is going to go live with you, because we want to make sure if you have any questions, you don't understand something, your child is struggling with something and you can't figure it out, or you want to find another way to look at it or teach, those opportunities in those 30 to 45-minute lessons, whether it's math, history, science, language arts, reading, whatever it may be that you need, that teacher is going to be available for you between 1 and 4 o'clock. So if you get up at 8:30 and check in, but you don't start any of your lessons till the afternoon, let's say 2 o'clock, and you start them and you're confused, and you don't understand it, it's 4:30, and now you want to ask the teacher, she leaves at 4. So the challenge is now you're going to probably go, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We have to submit this at some point in time and get these turned in. But the teacher's now trying to email the teacher, and she's on her way home. She has a family of kids that she may have to work with. They're educating her kids. But we have built in the day from 1 to 4 o'clock to make sure she is, or he is available for you, talking about elementary kids. So it is wise, and I will tell you this, to make sure that your children are on a routine, and they get up and start at 8, wrap up their assignments that morning, work hard to get it done, and then starting, eat lunch, have a little break, and then starting at 1 o'clock, you need to access that with your teacher. They need to be able to get online, and to do that, please make sure that your laptop or computer has a camera, so that we can actually see your child whenever that teacher is working with them, because it may be something simple. So you may only have a question about math and your kid rocked, the rest of them got it all right. Well, from 1 to 1:30 might be the math time for your teacher. So get on there and ask questions, make sure your students are engaged in that. And even if you don't have a question, I think Ms. Green said this, it is always great to interact with your teacher. And I know your teacher is going to want to interact with your students and your children. So please make sure you do that. So your typical day should wrap up around 3:34, just like they would for any other student that's in person. And that's the way it should work. If you think it's just going to be a deal where we show up, we kind of do a little bit, we turn it in, guys, that's not going to fly this year. The state has mandated so many things for us to do. It is important, number one, with the attendance. You have to have the attendance check-in, or you will not get credit for the class. It is that simple. The next thing is the rigor will be there, the challenge will be there. It's not going to be easy, but if you're organized and you do and follow the simple steps, it can be rewarding for your kids. The reason we have you here tonight is we don't want you to be frustrated, because we tried to create a simple concept for you, because you're the ones, if you've got pre-K and K and 1 and 2, that's a little more challenging. For your 3rd graders, 4th graders, and 5th graders, they'll handle this pretty easy, no problem. They can handle it for you. So you'll just be able to kind of guide them in the right direction. But we definitely want to make sure that if you're doing virtual tonight, and I'm assuming, and I don't know this, but I'm assuming that everyone here has chosen virtual, but maybe not. And that's okay, because there may be a time, who knows what happens in the future, that just like last spring, that we all may have to go virtual. We'll be ready to do that at a moment's notice. So I do think that there are some challenges. Make sure that you know your kids. Make sure that you have a system in place and a workstation where they can focus, whether it's at the kitchen table, away from things like my kids. I can't put them in front of the TV because that's never going to fly. And so please make sure that you put them in an area where you can sit down with them, if it's you or whoever's going to help support them, to make sure that they are ready to go. And so I think if you have all of those things in place and you feel like whoever's helping them provide them an education at home and monitor them, it can be a great experience. If it's a situation where you're just going to hope they get it done, that's going to be a challenge, and I think students will struggle. So the good news is, depending on what you choose, at the end of the 6 weeks, which will be September the 25th, you will have the opportunity to change your mind to either virtual, or you can come in person at that time. And that will, again, be the parent's choice each 6 weeks in the fall. So we definitely want to make sure that we're giving you the opportunity to pick what you want for your child. We'll have information that you can access. If you have questions, please correspond with your teacher, the virtual teacher that you have, because that's the key. And she will be available, I'm telling you, every day between 1 and 4. So there's no reason for a parent or a student to go, I can't get any help. All you have to do is join the Google Meet, which is just like Zoom, and have a conversation with your teacher. It's really that simple. And we do think they'll be excited about it, and they'll be ready to go. But some of the questions and some of the assignments will be a lot more rigorous than they were in the spring. It's a lot more challenging, which hopefully that's what you want for your children. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you being here. We know that this year will be a challenge for all of us. Thank you for being patient. And please feel free to ask any questions to your campus principal, Ms. Wall, Ms. Powell, and Ms. Burns. They do a fantastic job there, and we look forward to a great year. Again, if we can ever answer any questions for you, I know Ms. Green and Ms. Hooper will be glad to do that for you. Thank you so much, and have a good night.